Yeah, so having a timer
I'm an American.
is a little bit, I think it's stressful. It's like instead of just like, you ready to go? I'm ready to go. You ready to go? I'm ready to go.
Timers take things to another level.
They do. Feels
Another
so
level of responsibility.
official or something.
Well, guys, welcome to Testing Normal. Our founding mission is to explore strange new worlds and seek out new life and new civilizations to boldly go where no one has gone before.
My name is Jordan.
My name is Curse. And this is Testing Normal. Nailed that intro. I feel like we really had a really original kind of intro there. Not many people have heard
I feel
about.
like it was. Yeah.
Nailed it.
We're explore strange new places and strange new worlds. Did you watch? I sent you that video. People out there, maybe you saw it, the SNL Star Wars for the billionaires space travelers or whatever. That's like based on Star Trek.
No, I don't think I saw that.
Oh my gosh, you guys! It starts out and it's like Jeff Bezos getting up there into space, and he's like, but then there's like all these different celebrities that they're imitating, and then in the very end, Elon Musk shows up, and I won't spoil how he does, but it's hilarious, and it's just like billionaire spacemen or something like that, and it's supposed to look like it's Star Trek. It's great. Y'all should watch it.
Did you see though what Jeff Bezos, kind of his social faux pas when he flew Captain Kirk, right? He flew James T. Kirk up to close near orbit. I don't think it's all the way to orbit, but close to.
Yeah.
And then as what's his actual name? Oh, this is like
William Shatner.
This is a Trekkie like
William Shatner
travesty. I know. It's just like terrible that I couldn't remember his name.
Yeah. He's 90. I didn't realize
90.
that until.
But also, how beautiful is it that he, for his entire life, played a character that explored space, and not finally as a 90-year-old,
right? He
was able to actually go into space.
Right. And now some people argue, they're like, well, he didn't really go to space. He's really high. I was like, have you ever been 348,000 feet in the air?
Right.
I mean, that's international space. That's what's recognized as space. Here's the thing that irritated me about that. Maybe this is the faux pas you're talking about.
Mm-hmm, I'm sure
but
it is.
They had like the most annoying like girls that were there when he was trying to be interviewed that wouldn't shut up. Somebody needed to just punch him. Like, I don't even care. Like, you probably shouldn't hit women, but in this case, they should have been flung across that field. Because clearly William Shatner had a moment and was like talking about how he like saw death and like, and the earth disappeared and all this like emotional stuff, right? And they're screaming. Jeff Bezos couldn't be less interested, and he's like to tears over it, trying to like share it. Like, whether you think the guy has wisdom or not or whatever, you should probably listen to a 90-year-old when they're talking about stuff like that, just for a moment at least.
Yeah.
And nobody seemed to care. It was like, you guys, this could have been the greatest moment ever, but you can't even hear the interview because they're screaming, blasting off champagne and whatever. It's like, why? You already went. Like, you're late.
Right.
They already like SpaceX already did it, and they did it cooler. You did it. That's cool. I haven't done it, but yeah, it was
just a bummer.
It was irreverent, is what it was.
It was irreverent, exactly. In the middle of William Shatner's speech, the girls are screaming in the background. Jeff Bezos is giggling and laughing in the background. He grabs a bottle of champagne, puts it in front of William Shatner's face, kind of like, pops the cap and is like saying, "Hey, you want some of this?" While Shatner's giving a very poetic and kind of symbolic presentation. And then William Shatner, like, he turns his head and he goes, no. And it was just like obviously an awkward situation. And William Shatner
Bezos just drops
almost looked like he was about to cry.
Yeah.
He looked like that entire PR stunt was unfortunately overshadowed.
It was wrecked
by the harm of interrupting an American legend during a very, symbolic speech.
Yeah, the fact that he got to launch, a space captain into space.
Right.
And then he didn't like capitalize on that. I don't know. I had a lot less respect for the Blue Origin crew.
Yeah.
At that time.
Major bummer. It was a major bummer. Speaking of space, pretty wild stuff that I did not know about. I was kind of reading about space flight and kind of national security at the same time, and you know how we have Space Force and everything, as a kind of a stepping stone to seeing that going into international space, there's going to be, you know, need to protect things at a higher level of orbit. And
I would think.
I didn't know this, but China has now developed a hypersonic missile
Well,
that
apparently we
literally,
didn't either.
and we didn't either. The United
Right.
States didn't know this either. U.S. intelligence officials were totally caught off guard and by surprise when they found out that China had sent a hypersonic missile around the entire world, capable of flying around the entire world, and then missed its target by, like, I think it was 12 miles or 20 miles. Missed its targets by 20 miles. But when you fly something literally the entire circumference of the world and it can't be traced, like they didn't catch it. Like none
Right.
of our sensors, none of our satellite monitoring stations saw this missile fly all the way around the world.
Right.
That makes you think. That makes you think, oh shit, the US is we're in a vulnerable position, man.
Yes. So what I saw, and I hope I can find it, it was a tweet next to like China's news, and then what one of our officials had posted, and they were just like, we're screwed. Like it, yeah, I'll see if I can find it. But I thought the same thing. I was like, what the heck? Like, you have got to be kidding me. This is
Well, and while you're looking for that, we know that the United States and other countries like Russia, we know that they've developed systems designed to defend against cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, but the ability to track and take down a hypersonic missile still is what remains in question right now, right? So that's why it's such a big deal, because basically we don't have a defensive capability for these types of attacks.
Right.
And this
found
is
it.
like a real threat.
yeah,
And Russia has this as well now.
right. Which we have some Russia news too here in a second. But here's what I saw. Pardon the French at the top. We are effed. Just in, China tested a nuclear-capable hypersonic gliding vehicle that traveled around the globe through low orbit in space before cruising to the target. U.S. intelligence and military officials are stunned. And right next to it is Major General has a post up and says, why the Army thinks that French manicure is an obnoxious color compared to the civilian world, which views it. So clearly,
Oh my gosh. A major general is
clearly
tweeting
focused,
about her nails getting done.
clearly focused on the important things in life. And meanwhile, we're screwed, right?
Juxtaposed with China bragging about hypersonic missiles. Yeah, it seems like there's perhaps a little bit of a, at least from a social media standpoint, a prioritization that is
Slightly off.
slightly off,
Askew.
maybe lacking, askew,
Yeah.
aloof. One might
Yeah.
say aloof, perhaps.
Yeah.
It's one
Yeah.
way of phrasing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was pretty crazy to me. I was surprised by that. What was the Russia stuff? I didn't.
So the other
have some-
Russia stuff has to do with Russia is working on a law that would force social media platforms to allow their users to disable all recommendation algorithms such as Facebook's AI-powered news feed, the Commerçant, the one that we've talked about before, how it feeds you news to make you upset, feeds you ads based on your likes, your dislikes, where you're sitting at and everything. And the deputies from the governing and United Russia Party are concerned that these types of algorithms are increasing the risks of social conflicts and provocations. I'm bad at reading tonight. But anyway, makes people upset. And I think we could all say, yes, we agree with Russia, and then all go, wait, why are we agreeing with Russia? And why is Russia the one that is pushing for actual freedom laws? Does anyone else
Yeah.
wonder? Like, what is going on? If we aren't even pointing these things out, and it's about, I mean, clearly we could say it's about money. That's
Well, can you explain a little bit what is currently happening in the U.S. with our social media platforms and
Right.
what we're seeing?
Yeah, so currently with the social media platforms, and we saw this like when we talked about Facebook going down, and people, the lady that came out had a lot of correct statistics about how harmful it is to especially younger women, but also younger men and just everybody, where it makes them depressed, makes them not feel good about themselves, but also sucks them back in. And it's all based on an algorithm that they kind of base as okay, because it gets them more monetary gains, because you get more it gives you more interaction, which allows them to feed you more ads, which makes them more money. And Russia's saying, hey, it's not worth it to have these algorithmic ways of giving people their news feed, because Facebook has been found in the past to actually be feeding things to people that actually make them more angry, because the more angry you are, the more you actually come back, and actually the more engaged you are with the posts. So they want you to be on their platform more, because you're going to see more ads. Then they learn more about you, and then they sell your information, and it becomes this giant loop because you're sucked back in. Meanwhile, you're left depressed, feeling less good about yourself, and they make more money off that. So they're actually making money off of making people less healthy.
Yeah. And so in Russia's, to Russia's credit, they're recognizing that it affects their social temperament
Right.
of the populace. However, here's what's interesting about it. I think Russia isn't doing it from maybe I can't say they're not, but I would be very surprised if Russia was having this law passed because they're concerned about their citizens not being
I would agree with
free.
that.
I would imagine more than likely the purpose of it is Russia not wanting algorithms potentially influencing them against the Russian government,
Right.
and
I would
or
agree.
utilized by outside agencies. Right?
I think what's interesting about that, though, is good. You lowered that. Now you don't look like a little child next to me. What is interesting, and I heard someone say this the other day. I thought that's a really wise thing to say. Now, granted, not a very old person. I think they just turned 21, but they were talking about when El Salvador made Bitcoin legal and made it legal tender. He said, if this is a law that's meant to hurt the citizens, it's going to backfire. So we should applaud laws that are made good, or things that are made good by law, even if they're meant as bad, if we know that they will overall affect the populace positively. Does that make sense? So we know it's better if they get this passed so that Facebook doesn't control algorithmically how people feel, even if it's Russia trying to make it so that people can't be negative against Russia and have that fed towards them. It's still going to have a positive effect on the people, regardless if they want it for negative. So it's one of those things where they might be trying to do it for nefarious reasons, but it's actually going to have a positive effect on the overall well-being of the people.
Ooh, fascinating. Yeah, that's interesting. It's an interesting, because it's also like who's deciding whether it has a better effect for the overall people.
Right. Except that we could know as a whole, regardless of what they do or don't do, and what they do or don't allow on Facebook, if they do not allow them to algorithmically feed people the feed that makes them more angry, that's good. So it doesn't matter what else they're doing. If they're able to get rid of that, that's good. It doesn't mean that the rest of Russia is good, but that will be a positive outcome for the world if they can get Facebook to bow to that.
Yeah, even if there's potentially a negative aspect to it, the majority of it is a positive.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
That's interesting.
So, it's like there are good inventions that came out of Germany during a really bad time, right? Like there's good things that have benefited the world, right?
Right.
So would we still want to go through what we went through to get those things? Absolutely not. But
I think that's a perfect analogy to the current situation in Oregon, where we see a transition of potential running candidates for the governor.
Right.
And I had mentioned to you probably a year ago, maybe, or I don't know, maybe it wasn't a year ago, a while ago, how much I liked this senator. And I was happy to see whoever's out there listening, in Oregon
This
in
is
particular.
Betsy Johnson, right?
Betsy Johnson is launching an independent campaign
I saw
for
someone
Oregon
else,
governor.
post this, and I didn't know who she was. I didn't
Oh,
remember you having brought it
yeah.
up. I've heard positive things about her, but
Yeah. She
I didn't
is
remember that.
a tour de force, and her track record is incredible. She
Hmm.
started out as Republican, and then she didn't like some of the conservative uh, overabundance of, or it was at the time, this was like 30 years ago, she didn't like how some of the conservative people weren't willing to work cross borders on both sides.
Okay.
And then she went Democrat. And then now, as a Democrat senator, she's saying, I can't fall under any of these kind of specific
I really like
um,
her glasses. I would say that's the thing that
parties.
stood out
Yeah.
to me the
So
most.
she's deciding to run as a third party candidate. Here's what's interesting. Granted, I'm not a huge fan for anybody that is over the age of 65, probably being in
Right.
any type of like significant leadership role. Not that there's any 65-year-olds that aren't incredibly smart and witty and on the ball. But
Right.
she's 70, and so once you get to the age of 70, I think it's human nature, or I think it's just common sense to say you're not as sharp maybe as what you would have been at 55, right?
I think I think it's one of those things where some people are.
You
Because
think
like
some people at 70 are as at
I
55?
do. I've met people where I'm like, man, you're sharper than you were when you were 35. It just depends on the person.
Hmm. I guess
So
I've just seen a lot of people at that age typically start to take a
yeah, but it's
cognitive
like I
decline.
guess it's like I meet 16-year-olds that I'm like shocked that they are as mature as they are, and then I meet some 16-year-olds where I'm like shocked that they are not further along than they are, and I would say
Mhm.
that's kind of the same. I wouldn't say it's just older and younger people. It's all people. I th- I wouldn't be against like a cognitive or psych test or something as long as it was like
Mhm.
third party, like non bias, like revolving, kind of like how you would do like a appraisal on a house. Like it has to be a party that isn't related in any way, shape, or form,
Oh,
and
I
it
like
revolves
that.
all the
Yeah.
time. So you couldn't stack the deck. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily be against looking at that. At least I wouldn't say like I'm like all for it, but I would say because of that, I wouldn't rule out anyone in that age. But there's definitely people who are like 50 that I'm like, you are about to be put in a home. Like you can't
Well,
function.
I,
So
to be fair, I would say from every interview I've heard from her, and she's actually done multiple live stream interviews that
mhm.
I've been able to listen to. She is incredibly with it. She's very plain spoken. She has a very kind of direct style.
Okay.
So you don't feel like she's like masking anything. She comes across what she's saying is what she means, right? And she doesn't have this is what I also like about her as a fan of the Enneagram as an 8 myself. I like to be able to, when somebody's direct with me, it makes me feel like I can trust them. Um, and she is incredibly direct. Like she even said, she's like, I am a no nonsense leader. She's like with a backbone and a lifetime of experience. Um, and she's not afraid to have someone not like her if it's a good decision,
Hmm.
or a wise decision, even if it's not politically correct, maybe, or as popular. If she knows it's going to be what's best for the state, and there's a consensus with that, she's not afraid to make those moves.
The
Um,
name my mom was just asking, Betsy Johnson.
yeah,
She's
Betsy
apparently
Johnson.
she's been both Republican and Democrat. She's trying to do a run for governor as independent. My fear is, and I get all that. Like I've heard from other people that I trust as well, that she has a great track record as far as like being very on both sides and trying to see a wide gamut of things. Um, is just that we haven't seen anyone really. I mean, we've seen one, I think, libertarian ever get a large seat in a state, and that's not to say that there can't be more. It's
Mhm.
just not. It doesn't make me super hopeful that someone that is a strong candidate is going to make it as an independent. What I would love to see is if a bunch of people get fed up with a party if they went independent or went to a different party
Mhm.
or something like
Mhm.
that. I still see I see some fallacies with that. Could see it. I could see it going apart. I mean, there's a lot of people that said like, well, we're just gonna do the Patriot Party thing, and then there's a lot of argument that says, well, I mean, technically speaking, the Democrat Party's not what it used to be, and the Republican Party's not what it used to be. So if they already have a platform, why can't we just take it over? So there's arguments to be made for both sides, and I get why she's doing what she's doing. It just doesn't make me super hopeful that she's going to stand a chance. Now, maybe she'll lay the groundwork and pave the road for other people coming into that. I just don't see her winning, especially with some of the people that we have that are going to be running for governor in Oregon that are a strong candidate as well, and
Maybe.
aren't 65.
I do actually think with her track record, particularly,
Yeah,
she's actually voted for more Republican bills than any other Democrat.
Yeah, I believe it. They're still out there.
Right. But I think that but she's also opposed certain things on both sides.
Which I would
But
too.
I do think she has enough support. This is what's unique about her. She has enough support from Republicans that I think even some Republicans would flip their support for the whatever you would call it, incumbent, or the running Republican.
One of the largest growing groups in Oregon right now, and I know this because I've looked at the voter rolls and I've talked to the people that run the votes as well, that that's the largest growing is the people that have been fed up with both sides. It's not, there's been people that they sign up to be independent. It should be non-affiliated, but there's non-affiliated voters in Oregon are the ones you have to capture to win, even for Democrats at this point. And there are people that can swing either way. You just don't know. And so you have to, it'll be an interesting race. It's going to be an interesting governor race. I know that everyone in Oregon is just fed up with the way that the government has gone, at least predominantly. The news might not tell you that, but like, as far as like the temperature goes in the capital city, which you and I spend a decent amount of time in, people on both sides are absolutely done with what's gone on, and there's no hiding it. It's not like, not all of them are like, they're not like angry, want to like grab pitchforks and burn things down. There are some people that are at that point, but like a lot of people are just fed up and done and ready to vote the other direction. And I have a feeling in Oregon that it's going to be a huge pendulum swing, whether it's her or someone else.
A wild run. I think the amount of people that are running this next year are going to be, it's going to be a fascinating race, because obviously, you know, we have old Bud just keeps trying. He just keeps trying. He's got all that oncology money.
I'm sorry.
You know?
I don't want to like be mean to anybody, but Bud is a loser when it comes to politics at this point in my book.
He has not had a great track record.
No, he has not, and he just flip flop. Like he's Michael Scott with his vasectomy, just snip snap, snip snap, snip snap. Like
obviously,
I talked to one of his campaign people, and the dude couldn't answer a straight question. Like, and I was like, nope.
Of course, there's the Sandy Mayor Stan, Pullman or whatever his name is, Pullman.
Yeah, I've met him in person.
I can't say his name right, but
Pulliam.
Also, did you know there's a couple other like people that are kind of like prominent running that I didn't know about? Like, I guess there's big consultant Bridget Barton, and then a couple other, like the Baker City mayor is also running. But that's just for the Republican side. For the Democratic side, one of the top New York Times columnists is running for the Democratic Party. I was surprised by that.
You know what baffles me? There's a question that maybe someone could answer and send us an email and tell us what's going on here. Why is Kate Brown, why is she still paying a campaign manager and still taking campaign donations?
Well, now Governor Kitzhaber, he ran for multiple elections. Can you only run for two, or can you do more?
She can't run anymore.
No, so he did two, retired one, and then came back for a third. Is that how he did it? Because Kitzhaber, I'm pretty sure.
I think there's a limit on it now.
Terms.
Someone could correct me, but I think now 2 terms is the max. But I mean, he was gone, or was he the one that got?
His girlfriend ended up getting like insider trading or something like that with the government.
Every one of them could. Like, there was someone like a person today that I saw like sold a bunch of stuff right before they did a bunch of bills, and it was like $5 million worth of stocks that he sold before they tanked. And like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, how about this? If they're going to do that, they just have to disclose their entire portfolio. There's a really funny Twitter follow for those of you who really want to follow someone. It's Nancy Pelosi's, it's a Nancy Pelosi account, and the guy follows every trade that she makes.
Oh, really?
And Twitter has like shadow banned it. He's been come after everything, but he publishes every single move that Nancy Pelosi makes.
So sorry, that's amazing. But he actually served 4 terms. He's the longest serving governor in office. So he served
So
from
dumb.
90. He served 94, 98, 2010, and 2014.
I do think it's weird that Oregon hasn't had a Republican governor in like I think it's either 36 or 40 years.
Hasn't had a what was it?
A Republican governor.
In how long?
Like I think it's 40 years now.
Hmm.
It might be 36. It hasn't had like a sitting like state senator that's Republican for 36 years, I think. Which lines up perfectly with when we started mail-in voting. Interesting, right?
Oh boy. Oh boy. Wah, wah, wah.
Wah, wah, wah.
Okay. So
Moving right along.
yeah, anyways, look her up, guys, if you're interested. Senator Betsy Johnson. I think she's actually a breath of fresh air, potentially, and not willing to cow at somebody just because she's afraid that it might not look politically correct, and or it at the same time she's willing to stand up to both sides of both parties if she feels like there's an injustice being done. So I
It
respect
would
her.
be good. We need something different in Oregon. I mean, right now we could elect a goat, and I think it would do better than what we've got now. So we've got what we've got. We've got a governor that just keeps ruling from the throne, and then we have a health guy, Pat Allen, who has like a major. He doesn't even know anything about health. If you look at the guy, he's not a picture of health either. So he shouldn't be making the decisions along with our governor. It's just a disaster right now. Anything would be better.
Speaking of disasters, I think you talked about how you wanted to bring this up earlier.
Yes.
Um,
Let's talk about shipping delays, guys.
talk about shipping, guys. Let's get on to the little shipping topic here. Right now, we're hearing a common theme spread across the news of worldwide delays with shipping. Okay. I don't think this comes as a major surprise to anybody when you have a worldwide pandemic, but then you also have a year of basically majority of people kind of sitting at home and ordering a lot more online, I think, as well, and having a higher consumption rate over the past year and a half. So that was a big component. I was reading about kind of some of the triple factors that are delaying shipping. So first and foremost that they kind of acknowledge is there's a big supply influx or demand influx. Sorry. So that's a big component. The next component was we have a significant congestion at the docks, right? Everybody's kind of heard about this. I think, Jordan, you've talked about this a little bit.
Yep.
There's multiple factors for why we have congestion at the docks, but one of the reasons is when you have a rush of multiple container ships coming and an increased demand on those sites, your rate that they're going to be emptying them decreases. And over the past several years, we've increased the size of the cargo ships. The cargo ships are not these, smaller units. Like these are like massive floating cities, essentially, right?
Huge.
So we're having a congestion in that area. But this is what's interesting. I found out when the pandemic hit, typically a lot of third world countries didn't really receive that much cargo shipping. They didn't really have that much demand. But during the pandemic, shipping in particular significantly increased, and demand significantly increased in a lot of these other countries as well, third world countries in particular.
Right.
So when that happened, this was fascinating. A lot of the cargo ships around the world were going to these other ports as well. Well, that caused a deficiency in the amount of cargo ships that could pick up supplies basically from China. So all of those supplies backed up in China. So when those cargo ships left those third world countries, they were coming back to China, but then there was a congestion in China. So now all of these ships filled up with all these China goods are now rushing back to the States and to other countries as well to try to unload their goods. So now you have this kind of, they can't catch up with the backlog in China, and then also the backlog in the U.S. ports with
Mm,
unloading all this stuff. Um, so we have a kind of a negative feedback loop in that area.
right.
Um, and then, of course, there's also like typically U.S. ports are unionized. And
Mm-hmm.
so they're not used to working above a certain rate and pace. And so when truckers come to get their load, the union guys, as far as on the cranes and everything, are giving them a really hard time and saying, listen, you can't rush us. Like, we're union. We're going to do whatever we want, basically. And
Right.
so they're kind of strong arming the docks right now as well. And I didn't know this. They make a ton of money. They do
Mm-hmm.
really good. Like, we're talking like, at least like some of these dock crane operators are at least, $250,000 a year.
Right. Yeah, crane operators make a lot. Well, and here's another thing. Is like, so the 7th of August in 2020, a shipping container was $1,848 today.
Ooh,
Well,
fascinating.
as of the 15th of October 2021, a shipping container is $10,396. It was as high as $11,100
What?
in the 10th of
What?
September.
What?
So the shipping container prices have gone up too because of the backlog. Some of it is also that the employment, and then some of the companies are shut down in these states because most states are Democrat controlled on the coasts. So those are most the port cities. The states that are not Democrat controlled and are pretty much opened up, like Florida and Houston and all that, like that take in shipping as well, are wide open. And they're actually, there's people going through the Panama Canal and avoiding California to get their stuff in. And that
Right.
doesn't even include the small amount. Like I'd sent you a text earlier, or a text a little bit ago. Another small factor is like a lot of the truck drivers won't do work in some of the states that are requiring mandates for vaccines because they don't want it, at least a percentage of them. And even if it affects, say, 25%, if 25% won't travel into those, then that
Well,
significantly cuts down some of those states. But
part of the
getting it
issue,
in and out of those states to the inner parts of the country
right?
is where
That's not
people are
easy.
struggling. And because all the cities are on the coasts and they're primarily
Hmm.
like blue states, they're closed down. They're trying to keep it closed. So that's causing it as well. It's like you said, it's like a multifaceted
Multifaceted. And the big
issue.
factor is obviously majority of our supplies come from China. That's an issue in and of itself that needs to be addressed and resolved as far as just dependency and security and the ability for our
Yeah.
country to not be
I
dependent
saw
on another country.
a great response to that was, I know how to fix the shipping problem. Create stuff here. That's how you
Yeah.
fix the supply and demand in the middle of the country. If the blue states truly are locking down, say they're only locking down 50%, okay? Or say it's even 25%. That's a lot when it comes to getting stuff and goods into the internal
But
part of our country.
at that same aspect, in that same breath, this would require government regulation and government mandation. I don't think that's a word. Mandates that certain things, consumable goods, have to be made in the U.S. and cannot be
Or they get
brought in.
taxed differently so that it hurts you to do it from other
Mm.
countries. So
Yeah, to the
there's
point.
there's more than one way to do it, and that's what Trump had done. That was
That's true.
good. Nobody can argue with the fact that it was good that he started slapping tariffs on China because we were losing money to China. And then he was like, no, no, no. If we're going to get goods from there, we're at least going to take some of that money because it's lost revenue to us, which that makes
Mm.
sense. Love him or hate him,
Mm.
that was a really good decision. I think it should have been
Yeah.
more than 25%. It should have just ramped up
Hmm.
over time
It should have been a
until
steady incline to the point where
it's
until
cheaper to do it
infrastructure
here.
was made in the U.S. and it was cheaper to be made here, like whether it
Mm-hmm.
got to 30%, 40, 50, until it actually made a change in
Yeah.
manufacturing, right?
Because say we actually had a face melting disease in the country.
Right.
We don't want to rely on the PPE that we couldn't get
Right.
because we don't make it here. That
Right.
was a problem.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a
It
huge
doesn't
problem.
matter how you feel about that. If at some point we have a disaster that actually does require all of us to have some sort of supplies, it'd be great if we made them here, right? It's like if Armageddon happened tomorrow, how many people would survive? Like the statistics tell us that if the power grid went out for a year, that 90% of our citizens would perish. That's how prepared we aren't.
And honestly, 90% sounds like almost even a low number to me. Like I can think
But
of
that's like because the other 10% could eat the 90%.
yeah. But they wouldn't stay perishable goods, man. Perishable goods.
My
I
dad
don't know.
says mandation nation. No. We
Mandation
don't do it
nation.
by we don't do it by mandating. We do it by taxing the
Love that,
countries that are
Corky.
taking our money.
That's amazing.
But yes, at this
That's
point
so
it does
funny.
feel like that.
Mandation nation. We heard it first. That's
Oh
so
my
funny.
gosh. You heard it here first, folks.
Mandation
Yeah.
nation.
Now speaking of, if we want another reason to not give China our money, I don't know if did I send you this it's a Daily Mail article that I was reading and I was like, okay, if you say you believe in climate change, say you don't. Let's just say for a moment that a lot of people think it's a big deal. Okay? China just decided that it would plan to build more coal power stations and ramp up oil and gas exploration to solve its energy crisis. And they are not included. They don't have to do anything with this Paris Accord that we rejoined, that we actually had less CO2 emissions than they would have required of us under Trump. And he had stopped giving them money. He said, we could just do this without giving them money. Seems like a better deal to me. I would agree with that. Let's spend less money and do better. Now the country that is going to still continue to make all of our goods and that we tend to keep bowing to is now going to use the energy
what's
to
surprising
make
to
your
me?
goods that you hate and
I'm
aren't allowed
curious
to use.
why China isn't implementing more nuclear powered stations.
Because this is less expensive and they don't care if they make it dirty and blow it up.
Yeah, I just think like they play the long game, right? Like we've seen them
Yeah.
do this in a lot of areas
That's why they're
of
buying our
politics
farmland, man.
and technology and land purchase grabbing. They're not afraid to play the long game. So that's why I'm surprised. And maybe they are in this process of developing, nuclear plants. But
pull
it
this up while
doesn't
you're talking.
seem like I'm hearing about this as much.
Because here's this chart. Which countries burn the most coal? Looks like China. Let's see. China's energy consumption by source. Renewables, solar, wind, hydropower, nuclear, gas, coal, and oil. Interesting. That's weird. I wonder who the problem is. Doesn't sound like it's us.
Well, it is us. Though it is us.
It is us using their stuff.
Because we're using them.
Yeah.
Like how can you not? It's like it's yin and yang, bro.
Yeah.
We're not choosing to have our own form of production, and so we're utilizing this cheaper option, and at the same time enabling them and encouraging them to continue that. So I mean,
Absolutely.
it's hypocritical for any of us to point a finger at China when look at our own crap, man. We're stinky. We need to figure our own stuff out, man. It's frustrating.
Gary asked me to send him a link. Which link are you talking about, Gary? Are you talking about the Daily Mail one with China and energy?
Oh, okay.
I'm assuming that's the one you mean, so I just replied to you with it.
And guys, I just looked this up. So China apparently does have a significant amount of nuclear generating power.
They don't have a lot, according to this list.
Well, no, in 2020 they had the second most.
Yeah, but that means there's not a lot then.
They had so United States has the most nuclear electricity supplied in 2020.
This is their fraction of nuclear.
Right. But you're looking at
China's energy consumption in 2019. But this is the percentage this is total used. And that's how much is nuclear compared to coal and oil. So that maybe they have the most, but that just means a lot of people don't use. Why does that number
go higher? What is
this is over the years they have to use more. They're creating more energy because they have to. So they're more energy, more people, right?
So they're getting actually more energy from nuclear than they are from coal right now.
No, they're getting less. This is how much of it is nuclear. This is how much of it is coal.
That graph is kind of confusing.
Yeah.
Either way, they are using just as much. Well, they're not using as much as the United States, but they're using more than France and Russia.
Right. My dad said something interesting here. So when he was in China in '96, they still had a third of their rail transportation system, then 1 billion people, powered by coal-burning steam engines.
Oh, the
Interesting.
trains. The
Right.
trains were steam engines. Okay.
Right. So if
Fascinating.
they're still if they're still using coal burning steam engines in 96, yeah. So according to
Yeah.
this graph, the most like well over half their energy is use coal, and they're doubling down on that this year.
Here we go. Okay. Reactors under construction. China right now. Okay, this answers some of the question too. So they are pursuing it. China has the most reactors under construction currently. They have 18 nuclear reactors under construction right now.
Right, but I guess what I'm saying is like how many reactors would they have to create to replace the coal
The
plants that are
coal,
using
right?
that are making 2/3 or more of their energy now? Quite a bit.
But to be
So
fair,
this kind of goes to what we were talking about, like even with electric cars. Like they might be a long-term solution that's good and more
mhm.
clean, but not currently made in China because clearly things made in China are very not clean. I think we could all
Well,
agree on that.
yeah, I think that China could be moving in the right direction, um, but they're not there
Not if they're
currently.
building more coal. That's the point of this article. Is China thumbs and nose at targets as it plans to build
Well,
more coal power stations to ramp up oil and gas exploration.
yeah,
So
I
they
think
might be building more
they're
nuclear, but they're also building more coal at the same time.
right, exactly, because their current need. Those nuclear plants don't. They take like 10 to 20 years to get completed, right? So they have to have power now, right? So from just a reality checkpoint, they're
You're
building those
defending
in the
China.
future, but they're needing them now. Well,
I
no,
think what
I'm not ignoring
I
the
think what we need
obvious
to
as
come
well.
back to is we all just need to not get our stuff from China because clearly it's not cleaner.
Well, and it's not just China. It's we all need to be able to rely on ourselves.
Yeah,
Particularly the US needs to be able to
I would
rely on
agree.
themselves. And the US right now actually I'm a little bit disappointed with as well. We have not been expanding our nuclear plants that much either. We only have
Bad
currently
job with that.
there's only 2 nuclear plants under development in the United States, which is pretty disappointing considering how efficient and actually waste wise. There's been a really interesting article I read about how much waste a nuclear plant generates compared to other plants, even with considering the nuclear radioactive
Really. I
sticks. Yeah.
was reading and I haven't checked into these stats, but it was an it was like a conversation between somebody that worked in like a higher up in electricity in the electrical grid, and they were asking about electric cars, and they kind of chuckled and they said, "Current with our current grid, most neighborhoods could not support more than like one electric car per 8 to 20 homes based on like however their grid is. If there were more than that, the grid would not support it."
Hmm.
So if you think about that for a second and they want us to go to all electric, our grid already won't support it. Like it won't
Um.
support, you'd have to
Yeah.
go to like other like secondary chargers or something like that, but you wouldn't be able to do it from homes at all.
So basically, like 12-ish%, like 12% about could be electric vehicles.
Right.
Um.
Before that, and that's to max the grid out. That's not even that's like he gave the wattage that most homes would require, and most homes actually don't support charging an electric car. You'd
Oh,
have to
interesting.
have work
They don't
done
have enough
to do it.
wattage coming to the house.
Yeah, it
That's
would use
surprising.
up more than between the home and the car and all that, and like you to get enough charge, um, in a short enough time for people that would normally commute. It just wouldn't work.
Well, that leads to a whole nother issue that we probably shouldn't dive into today.
Probably
But
not.
the infrastructure of our power supply
I mean, we warned 10 years ago that we shouldn't
is
let China do
woefully
it, and if
insufficient.
it fails, we'll all die.
Yeah, that's a scary one.
And that was under Trump. That was that's one thing that like if I had been told that, I'd been like, let's get this figured out now, because they were
Yeah.
saying like all these things are going to fail, and if they do, this is our numbers. At least 90% of the people in our country would die, and we need to have these grids fixed, and we should not get them supplied by China. They didn't work on it. What's the first thing that happened when the administration changed over to Sleepy Joe? They used China to put in those grids, and who would be able to maybe
Well,
control those?
not even nation as a whole, but just look at our city.
Yeah,
All of our above ground power lines have been shown not to hold up very well to inclemental weather.
yeah, yeah. They
Clearly.
caused like 8 of the fires that were just in the one main fire that was by us in last year.
Yeah. That which it resulted in multiple deaths too, man.
Yep.
Super sad.
Oh,
Okay,
it's
so the
bad.
only interesting thing that I wanted to just tap into real quick, there's been some interesting strikes going on between multiple unions lately. There was the Kaiser Permanente had a big union strike from their nurses. They were concerned about their pay kind of gaps that are taking place. But one actually that kind of was interesting to me more than any of them was this recent Kellogg's cereal had a big strike. All of its workers went on strike. Like it was a plant of uh,
Really curious why.
1,500 people, 1,400 people, or something like that. They all went on strike because what they were going to implement, and this is something that I feel like the state has kind of done to its, um, I don't know, are you union,
Am I?
Jordan? Yeah.
Technically, yes.
Okay. The state has done, I guess, to a degree with union and PERS. Um, but what they're creating, Kellogg's is kind of pushing for is a two-tier wage system.
Mm-hmm.
So currently, certain employees, if you've been there for a period of time, right? Like you're guaranteed certain benefits, you're guaranteed certain compensation, retirement plan, whatnot. And so what they're saying is that any new hires from here on out, come January 1, they will not be given the same wage potential that you were given, and they will not be given the same healthcare benefits that you were given, and they will not be given the same retirement benefits that you were given.
Because they're not in the union?
No, because they're just saying, hey, this is our solution to save money because we're not going to take money from you because you guys are already here. But anyone from hitherforth that comes on,
So is
there's
this
a
is
different
this is
tier.
this specifically in Oregon?
No, no, no. This is across
So I
Kellogg's
wonder if
cereal.
this
So
has something to do
Michigan,
with, because this happened in
Michigan,
Oregon
Tennessee.
recently too, where a lot of states you could not opt out. Like you were, if you got employment at a place that had a union, you were forced to pay union dues and forced to be a part of the union.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of states now, including Oregon, you do not have to give dues and you do not have to be a part of it.
Right.
But the rules are that there must be every employee gets the same bargaining regardless if
Mm-hmm.
they're a part of the union or not, and they do not have to disclose so. Hence my
Yeah, in
answer.
this situation,
So
a little different
yeah,
because this is the union
but
fighting against
I wonder if
Kellogg's.
that has something to do with it, because the union has had enough people opt out that they're not
Oh,
making money anymore.
well, it's the union because Kellogg's themselves is saying, hey, we don't want to give everybody that comes on to your union anymore the same benefits. We want to give new people different benefits.
Likely they're trying to get rid of the union, and it's a battle
Perhaps, yeah.
between them and the union. And to be quite honest, I don't blame them. I think that unions started for a good reason, and they became the monster that they were fighting.
Hmm.
Because
Yeah,
they
unions are
oftentimes
interesting.
fight for things that I don't politically agree with, and then I have no choice. And so I'm
Yeah.
funding things that I don't agree with. And that would be like if you moved to a town and they had a church in it and you had to give money there, but you didn't believe in it.
Well, did you know that there is that happens in well, first of all, that's in Europe. They do that in Europe.
I'm
There's
sure they
actual
do.
like a Catholic church tax. Like if you live in certain regions in Europe, certain
I
countries,
Yeah, I
in
don't agree with
Germany,
that.
you have to pay a tax to the church. It's like part of like the law. It's wild.
That is
Um,
weird.
and then also in I
I
think
don't
in
like that.
Utah, there's something like that with the Mormon church. I can't remember exactly
I
what that
wouldn't
is.
doubt it in Utah.
Yeah. Yeah.
They can do
Something
whatever
crazy.
they want. It's
Something
Utah.
crazy.
It's gone.
Well, that's the main big topics that I wanted to hit on.
Yeah, I think
Anything
that,
else major you wanted to drop on?
except to say, I think we talked about the Chappelle thing last week. Still haven't listened to it or watched it. They tried to cancel it this week, and Netflix stood their ground and said that they're not taking it down. It's making too much money.
This is what I'm gonna say about it. I have watched it all the way through. My
Yeah.
wife and I both watched it.
And
Um, the irony of the cancel culture is he specifically says like I'm saying these things because of the fact that cancel culture and the LGBT community has flaws in it, particularly towards racism in that community. And you can't say just because you're part of a minority group that you don't have any type of racism or that you are infallible. And so he's saying like,
true.
hey, there was a situation where this guy shot and killed another man in Walmart and nobody raised a fuss about it at all. He was a famous rapper. But because he called someone a homosexual slur, all of a sudden everybody's canceling him. Cancel culture is hitting him. So he's like, right. So how come this guy can kill somebody, kill a black man in Walmart, and nobody bats an eye at it, but he called somebody gay, and now the entire world's attacking him? Like, it's true. How does that not reinforce?
It doesn't make any sense. Yeah, that shouldn't be what they're raising it about. Like, I think that's right. The kind of stuff that the court of public opinions can slaughter someone over. Say something dumb, and you're gonna get called dumb. Like, that's just the rules, right? That's all. You say something dumb on the playground and you're gonna get punched. Like, that's the way life has been up until the last few years. But if you kill someone, there are giant lawful repercussions. But
nobody batted an eye at it.
People
because
don't care about things
this
that
is
matter.
A black man that nobody cared about.
Yeah,
and it was a very. He made a really good observation that a lot of people, and he did it in a very. I feel like he specifically said like, he presented himself in a way of saying like, also comedians, we say things the way they are because we're trying to challenge culture and we're trying to acknowledge certain things and fallacies within our culture, right? And so if you have such a PC culture that you're afraid to can't get canceled, then you're going to just basically have negative reinforcement throughout, and nobody's going to actually call out things that need to be corrected.
Well, because comedy is funny because it calls up the absurdity.
Yeah.
So even if something is true, right? So even if something is true, you can still find something absurd about it, or there's always, like, even in true things, there's always absurd people. And comedy has a way of finding that and just poking the bear and bringing to light the things that need to be brought to light, right?
Yeah.
In a funny way.
It should get watched. If you guys have a chance, I would say his last series.
It's probably super family friendly.
His last special was actually a little funnier, I think, personally, but this one's a little bit more socially informative, I think. But that's the main stuff I wanted to hit y'all with. I'm going to throw down a shower thought for y'all. Cool. All right, my first one. Life is the only game where your maximum hit points decrease as you level up. Those are for my gamers out there. As far as your physical health.
It's true, but there are some people that somehow reverse that.
Only if they started off.
They get like crazy healthy and.
But majority. I'm going to say majority.
Majority, though, yeah. But I'm just trying to give props to, like, there are like some 60-year-old Iron Men out there that are like nuts. That are definitely.
They're on TRT too, though.
That's true. Yeah.
They're also.
I didn't say they got there like non-artificially.
They're taking some health potions.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Crystals can actually heal you. Did you know this?
Go on.
But only if you have a salt deficiency.
Very true. Yep, or potassium. Yeah, it's good. I like it. Road rage would probably decrease if car manufacturers made their horns sound hilarious.
Like the Tesla.
Like the Tesla, baby. Like if every time you honk the horn, it was just like a silly dragon saying excuse
like
me.
a clown cart. I think it was Mitch Hedberg that said he thinks that it was him, said that you should limit car horn honks to 3 per week. That way you would really be like sparing. He's like, unless you like something bad happen, you're like, dang it, the horn won't work. I wished I hadn't seen Jimmy. Because you're always like, boop, boop, boop. Hey.
That's hilarious. I love that. All right. You got any more shower thoughts?
Oh, yeah.
Hit me.
If a sloth clapped, it would always sound sarcastic.
Oh, my gosh. That's hilarious. Seeing a sloth clap would be really funny. That's good.
I saw a Facebook post this morning from a mom that said, that she heard like fighting going on downstairs. She's like, dang it. Walked downstairs slowly and she saw her kids frozen in place, like in fighting positions. And she's like, I thought you were trying to get along today. And they were like, Mom, we're sloth fighting. Like, that was their real answer.
I love that.
They weren't doing
All
what
right,
they're
my
supposed
last
to
shower
do, but
thought.
still.
Last one. Someone needs to create grass. I've literally thought about this multiple times. Someone needs to create or manufacture grass that grows to about 2 inches tall and then stops. How come we haven't genetically engineered grass to do that yet?
Like paint grass that's just at that height and dead.
Yeah, that's not as cool though, man.
That's not as
That
cool.
seems like that's not as cool. They could create grass if they can create trees to grow to certain heights and arborvitae to grow at different heights.
But they
Grass should
don't.
be
They're
able to
like
be
bonsai trees. They just grow real slow. Bonsai grass.
GMO it, baby.
That's
GMO
true.
it.
You wouldn't have to eat it.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't want to feed
Yeah,
it to your horses or cows, but
that's true. That's true.
okay. I'll pick one last shower thought here.
Okay.
The way that you make a family is totally not family friendly.
Also, it brings up the hilarity of people talking about how they've been practicing making a family, or they've been trying really hard to have kids. You're like, yeah, okay, you guys are getting jiggy. All right, you do you.
So
Good for
we had
you.
a couple comments about the road rage. Amnor said that no road rage would decrease if dumb people stayed home. And Crane said, road rage is easy to avoid if you go the speed limit. I would argue
You're actually causing.
you're
road rage.
causing all the road rage.
Yeah, you're the root of it. Then
It's like the army says on time is late, 15 minutes early is on time. Going the speed limit is too slow. 5 to 10 over is the speed limit.
amen, amen, brother. All right, TIL. I have two, so I'll go first.
Okay.
Today I learned.
We did those backwards. Weird. I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, we did. That's interesting. Today I learned that I don't know why we did that. Today I learned that a cricket match, a real cricket match, took place between a team, this is amazing, of one-armed men against a team of one-legged men. After much incident, the match ended in a narrow victory, and it was the one-armed men that claimed victory.
That makes sense. There's a lot of running involved in cricket.
Yeah, but you could have like a prosthetic leg, you know?
I
And if
just
you only
was
have one
imagining
arm,
a lot of hopping.
balancing, you know? Yeah. That's kind of a funny match, though.
So Crane had an interesting point. He said, stop breaking the law and then your stress will drop. And he said, what does the word limit mean in English? And I would say, hey, next time you're on the freeway, actually, I'll just give you Highway 22, okay? Because I know you drive that all the time. Go down Highway 22 and find me a sign that says limit on it. They all say speed, and that's because we go by the basic rule in Oregon, and that means if the flow of traffic is faster, so is the speed limit.
Or the speed.
Yep. There is no limit in our state. Some states say speed limit. Ours says speed.
Hit me.
That's it. That's my shower thought.
No,
for
your
the night.
TIL.
Oh, my
No, your
TIL. That's my today I learned. That's the today everyone else learned. A TIL, roughly 70% of businesses in Sicily still pay protection money to the Sicilian mafia.
Fascinating. Huh. That's fascinating. Hey, if it works for them. All right. Today I learned kind of
We're in
another
the wrong
mafia
business.
here. On the just a legal mafia. Today I learned the CIA lost 9 cores of plutonium in the Himalayas trying to construct a listening post in the 60s. And there's actually a video about this you guys can find on YouTube. The CIA lost 9 cores of plutonium that have not been found, at least by us, in the Himalayas in the 60s. Wild.
Weird. You know who has them?
North Korea. Ooh. I don't know why this reminds me of, but I'm excited. I don't know if you guys have been seeing the new The Rock's new movie coming out. the new Marvel. I think it's Marvel. Uh, uh, um, it's Black Adam. Looks dope. The trailers for it. Super excited about that. You guys should check it out. All right, guys, that is all that we got for you. Hope you guys have a fantastic week. We hope that you stay safe. We appreciate all your input and your thoughts. We appreciate you joining us. Don't forget, if you get a chance, hit that little subscribe button on YouTube, on Facebook. Those are pretty much the main ones that we live stream. Everything else, you can also just subscribe to us on all of your audio platforms out there. So
last I heard, we're on at least Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Know that for sure. All right, guys, we appreciate y'all. Have a fantastic week, and we will talk to you soon. Peace.